Welcome to Changing Austin, and today's guest is Kara Hanaoka. Welcome, Kara.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is a thrill to have you here. So I would love for you to tell our audience here, what are you famous for? So what's your role today, and how did you come to be in that role?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. You're the first person to ever call me famous, but I will definitely let you know what I'm known for.
I won't be the last.
Maybe. So I moved to Austin in 2010 and been living here for the last almost 15 years and working mostly in the social impact sector. So working for various nonprofits like the Central Texas Food Bank, It's Time Texas, which is a public health, and now I'm the executive director of Good Work Austin. And so we support food workers and locally owned bars, restaurants, coffee shops here in Austin to create more healthy careers in that industry.
Awesome. So I want to start there because I bet a lot of folks don't know who Good Work Austin is and sort of what the work you do is. And I know I have definitely been educated around the issues that Good Work Austin helps to address. So I am an avid diner and drinker here in Austin.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's my duty and my privilege to serve in that capacity.
Great.
But it is, as I have learned more about sort of the industry and kind of how the industry works and what runs the industry and what the opportunities are for the industry, it seems like that's really what Good Work Austin does. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So our mission is to foster healthy careers in the food and beverage industry through professional development and advocacy for more equitable practices. So the organization started about 6 years ago. And as you can imagine, right after that, COVID happened, which had a really significant impact on our food workers and then also our local restaurants. And so a lot of restaurants joined during that time because they were closing their doors. They were having to lay their employees off. And so we partnered with the city of Austin to be able to have restaurants keep their doors open and feed the community. So the city of Austin put millions of dollars back into local restaurants, and they were able to produce healthy, quality meals, culturally diverse meals for different Austinites that were struggling to put meals on their table. And so that program really took off, and we had about 60 restaurants participating. That continues to today. We serve local shelters every single day. And then in times of disaster, like the winter freezes that we keep happening every January and February.
You mean those 100-year storms?
Yeah. Of course, not only are sometimes restaurants closed during that time, but people are lacking access to food. More emergency shelters are opening because of the cold weather. And so we're able to pull together restaurants to kind of feed during that time. But we have about a dozen restaurants that feed every single day. And again, that money goes straight back into restaurants, and they're able to pay that living wage. And so that's kind of the other part of Good Work Austin is that our food workers are some of the lowest paid workers in the country. So $2.13 an hour is the lowest minimum tipped wage. Of course, employers are supposed to make up that difference to make it that $7.25, but not everybody. It's complex. There's a lot of wage issues within the service industry. There's also a lot of harassment and discrimination within the industry. And so, 90% of female workers in the industry, particularly tipped workers, report harassment. Workers lack benefits, health care, child care. So there's a lot of issues within the industry, but there's also a lot of bright spots. So Austin was awarded 7 Michelin stars this year, some of our members. And of course, probably what you and other people love about the city is that you can go out to eat at pretty much anything you want and get really good food. And so our barbecue, our breakfast tacos, all of those things are so good. But the industry depends on the people serving you your food, and those people are really struggling. So about 50% of them told the city in 2023 that it wasn't enough for them to live here. They weren't making enough for them to live here. And so that has created a lot of labor shortages within the industry. So Good Work Austin also now does workforce development programming. So we take people that are experiencing barriers to employment. We work with nonprofits you might know like LifeWorks who help youth aging out of foster care, and we're able to put them through a training program. Amplify Credit Union actually came in and did some financial literacy training for the trainees, and they're able to then move into living wage jobs. And so we partner with restaurants to really get them to pay that $21.63 an hour that it takes to live in this city. Because we want our local restaurants, we don't want to have a bunch of chain restaurants in Austin. We want to keep Austin that unique place that when I moved here in 2010 it is. And that's why people love this city so much. That's why tourists come. And it's just it's the biggest private sector economy in the city, the hospitality industry. And so we do a lot of advocacy with our local officials as well. And so just continue to support not only the workers, but also our locally owned businesses.
So as you think about that segment of our workforce, I know I started my earning life in the food and beverage industry. I was a server and then a bartender. I mean, absolutely. It's skills I carry into my life today.
Of course, yeah.
Amateur bartender, it's in my bio.
I love that.
Once a real bartender, now just for me and my friends.
That's a really good quality.
I'm a fan. It makes me popular around cocktail time.
Yes.
But it is, what I find interesting about it is, at that time, that for me, that was a part-time job while I was in college. But I know a lot of folks who it's a career path. This is what they want to do. And the restaurants that I have the privilege to go to today, you can tell very much this is a profession. This isn't a college student who's making money to try to get on to the next thing. But I'm not certain that the income earning opportunities necessarily match that. And so as you think about what this means for the economic development of Austin. Yeah. So as on Changing Austin, a lot of what we want to talk about is sort of what has made Austin great and what will make Austin great next. It's really kind of a look back and a look forward. So as you think about what we can learn from the dining scene and the workforce imperative around that, what is the real opportunity you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think supporting restaurants that are doing good work, or what we say. So you're completely right. This industry, these are very much skilled professionals, and also an industry that is bringing business into our city. It's why tech companies are moving here. It's a vital part of our economy. And so these people are going to school for this. They're elite training. They're at the top of their game. If you're getting a Michelin star, you're really at the top of your game on a global level. And so we need to ensure that not only are we working with them so they can provide living wages, but also that, they have opportunities like providing childcare, because most people are working non-traditional hours. And I think a lot of that comes down to policy. So we work really closely with the city of Austin. We're having discussions with council. I just came from city council meetings, and also our economic development office. What type of incentives and tax incentives, rebates on utilities can we give to these businesses that are paying living wages, that are creating these healthy careers? When a tech company comes to Austin, we're much more likely to waive taxes for them. But for small businesses, we just don't see those similar things. And so we really need to invest and support those businesses. Otherwise, in 10 years, we won't have those businesses. We won't have our food scene that we're so proud of and we're so lucky to have right now if we're not creating business and economic development incentives for those businesses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Good Work Austin is a nonprofit organization.
Yes.
And you mentioned your background with other nonprofits. Amplify actually serves a lot of nonprofit organizations among our members. And we have the privilege of seeing a lot of folks who work in nonprofits. And it's a hard job. Everybody I know who works in a nonprofit organization, they are working more hours than anybody that I know, and they are stretched so very thin. And so I would love to know how you manage sort of having that as an enduring profession. So as you think about avoiding burnout or managing the potential for burnout and thinking about sustainability in the nonprofit sector to support the mission that nonprofits focus on.
Yeah, that is a great question. I think the burnout is very real, and I think we are losing a lot of people from this sector that just are not going to put up with kind of having to work those 70, 80-hour weeks and make potentially not as much as they would make in the private sector. So I moved here in 2010, started working in nonprofits then. There were about 6,000 nonprofits then. There's, I think, over 13,000 now. Austin has a lot of nonprofits. And what I think the biggest changes have been, really been professionalizing themselves. And so they are attracting talent, I think, from the private sector, which is really exciting. People with like project management backgrounds, and data, like understanding how to do geography information systems, so mapping spatial data, some things that I think we were doing a lot of good over the last few decades, but now we're being more intentional about what does impact look like, what does data look like, what does systems change and policy change look like. So it's a sector that's advancing, but then it's not necessarily advancing in compensation. And I think right now what nonprofits are facing is budget shortfalls. So as the federal government stops funding federally funded programs, as the state government limits it as well, we are seeing really large nonprofits have their funding cut. We're seeing smaller nonprofits kind of trickle down to that. And so the diversity of funding is getting smaller. People aren't giving as more because they're feeling uncertainty about the market. And so I think it's impacting also this sector to be able to keep that talent that I think a lot of nonprofits have built and advanced their work to keep. But I'm afraid that we're going to lose those people because we aren't maybe ensuring that we're able to compensate them, or we're able to provide enough staffing as well. So not having them do 1.5 jobs or 2 jobs or something like that.
So as you think about, are there any sort of bright spots that you see amid, that that's a stunning number. I knew we had a lot of nonprofits.
A lot of nonprofits.
From 6,000 to 13,000 in
yes.
10, 15 years.
Too many.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So as you think about what are the bright spots that you see of, if we could do more of this, that would move the nonprofit industry in the right direction?
Yeah, so this has been a conversation for a few years, particularly pulled together by a lot of larger foundations, which is collaboration. So we have to collaborate. Should there be 13,000 nonprofits? We need to talk about that. There's a lot of duplication of services. And so there's things like Austin Together that emerged a few years ago, where they're helping people merge, they're helping people have more formal collaboration. But I mean, every nonprofit summit I go to, conference, it's who are you collaborating with? I think a lot more of that is happening, but we still need people to fund those collaborations. And so we need, I think, the corporate sector to play a bigger role in philanthropy because, there are only so many foundations here in Austin, and Austin is not a big giving city in comparison to other markets like Dallas and Houston. There is not as much giving here. Unfortunately, I think Amplify Austin is trying. I Live Here, I Give Here, which is the organization that kind of encourages people to give. There is just not as much giving here, and so the corporate sector really has to play a role in how do we ensure, especially things like workforce, people experiencing homelessness, how do we ensure that we're taking care of those most vulnerable people because these businesses are a part of the community?
Absolutely. Well, one thing I observe when it comes to corporate giving is there's a tendency to be, I think, less consistent than what you might see in individual philanthropy, so to where this year these organizations are funding in a big way, and next year they are not funding in a big way. Or this year the cause and mission was this, and next year it's that. And so from a nonprofit sector point of view, that can be really difficult to have accountable and sustainable funding, as opposed to just, it's great to write a big check, but are you going to write a big check over a long period of time? That means something different to a nonprofit.
Yeah. So a couple issues. One being that normally they're only funding for a short period of time. Yes, it's not multi-year funding. The second is a lot of times they're not covering things like overhead, like staff salaries. They want very project-based work. They want people directly impacted. They don't want to pay for your lights to stay on or you to be able to send out an email, things like that. And then I think the other thing is that the priorities are kind of shifting and becoming more narrow, where maybe work like policy change or immigration issues or anything that's maybe kind of like outside of the normal like direct service is a little bit more controversial to fund.
So I know one of the things that Good Work Austin focuses on is food equity. And that is not a term that I think a lot of people are necessarily familiar with. Can you unpack that just a little bit? What does food equity mean?
Yeah, so when we think kind of about equity, we think about that different people are coming to the table with different backgrounds, resources, perspectives. And so they're going to need different support to be able to access food, or in this case, like kind of have a healthy career in the food and beverage industry. And so it's just acknowledging that there are systemic inequities within our system, intentional systemic inequities, because of our history of how we've built Austin. Austin's incredibly economically and racially segregated, kind of west to east through 35, and that was intentional. That was a city plan passed in the 20s. And so not recognizing those things, not being aware that different communities need different things, whether it's materials translated or just different cultures understanding things like tipping, like other places around the world don't tip.
It's not a thing.
It's a very American thing that we honestly was started during slavery. And so when slavery ended, it was a way to not pay people. And so, the roots of our history and our culture in America has a huge impact on how this industry was intentionally designed. And so when we think about food equity, either it's food access or more like around food workers, we just have to acknowledge that it's not a level playing field.
And so as you think about what individuals in Austin or business leaders in Austin would do with that knowledge, what do you want them to do?
Yeah, I think really just when they're creating healthy environments, hopefully at their workplaces, they're acknowledging that everybody is showing up in a little bit different way. So one employee may not need the same things as another employee. So you made an example of a young person, maybe they're in college, and they're having this as a part-time job, rather than maybe a mother who is a single mother and has a family and needs childcare and needs, benefits. And they're just going to have such different experiences. And what we want is the industry not to just serve the person who's a college student who doesn't care if you give them health care because they're on their parents' health care, that we're really making sure we design the system for the most vulnerable person, because that's the person who really needs the system to support them.
Okay, so from a diner's perspective, in your perfect world, what would look different when Stacy goes to eat at the next best restaurant in Austin?
Yeah, I mean, so many things, but I think one thing specifically for Stacy is consumer education on this. I think a lot of people go out to eat and just kind of have no idea, like, why do we leave tips? Why is the system designed this way? Where is my tip going? How is this restaurant treating their workers? And so I think Good Work Austin has to work really closely with the city, and we've been talking to them about this, is really recognizing businesses that are doing good work and creating healthy workplaces, so consumers have more power with their dollar to, I want to go to this business because I can see that they're treating their workers really well, just like any other product that you would buy, and signing up for a bank that does things that are great. And so I think that's a part of it. But then also, again, these policies have been set over hundreds of years of why things are this way, why workers make so little, why they don't have health care. And so we have to work with government on that. And so that's something that we have really great elected officials. We're working on making more statewide changes, but that's definitely something for the future. We won't be able to completely change the system until we have legislation that changes it.
So one thing that I see a lot in nonprofits that are mission driven is you identify an issue, a need, or a cause, and then you realize, oh, it's really interrelated with these other things. Oh, and it's a part of a bigger system, and it can be difficult to know where is the right place to assert ourselves, within whatever organization you represent. And then what becomes boiling the ocean, where you feel like your impact is sort of diluted because it's gone so broadly. How do you choose that place?
Yeah, I think that's really tough, and I think that's why a lot of nonprofits have like mission creep. And so I think having like a really great and strong strategic plan of like what are you trying to change, what is the specific problem you've identified, what data are you collecting. But I think when it comes to you being a part of a larger ecosystem, especially if you're a smaller nonprofit, I think that's where collaboration is really important. So like we're a part of like One Voice Central Texas, which is all the social service nonprofits in Austin. So sharing data, talking about what we're doing, making sure we're not duplicating services is really important. But like I said, nonprofits from my first year in them have advanced so far. I mean, not only did we not share data before, some of us didn't collect data. And so I do think the sector has advanced a lot, but I still think charity, the social, we say social impact, but essentially charity is not going to solve some of these bigger issues like hunger and homelessness. We are going to have government make substantial changes in how things are set up. And so I think we always need to remember, like, we're a part of the puzzle, but their government and the private sector have like a big part to play as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So you have been here since 2010. I would love to know what is the change that you have seen since then that you think is the best change in Austin over the course of the time you've been here?
Yeah. I think in the nonprofit sector, it has been the nonprofits advancing in what they're doing. I think before there was a lot of doing good with great intention, but it wasn't necessarily either connected to data or connected to community voice. And so it was a lot of like, I assume that these people need this resource so they can thrive. So I do think especially a lot of like the more advanced and mature nonprofits are doing that work. They're hiring people that are really well educated in some of those strategies. And so I think the nonprofit sector has come really, really far. But I think income inequality has grown in Austin during that time. And so I do think we still have a lot of work to do. But I'm really excited about how much I think our city government also wants to be responsive. So I'm excited for the next 10 years of like having this kind of strong nonprofit sector and then also a responsive city government, my hope.
Absolutely. One thing that we say often at Amplify is nothing for me without me.
Yes.
So, I mean, as you think of when, and we use it in sort of a product design point of view of like, okay, well, so if we're going to create a new product or we're going to have a new feature or we're going to make a decision about how we're delivering services in a certain way, we should make sure we have the voice of the person that we believe we're serving involved in the decisions about what are we meeting a real need and are the things that we believe we can accomplish for them what they actually want and would value. And so that's kind of, I think what I'm hearing you say is doing that a little better in the nonprofit community.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about that is businesses have been doing that for so long. Mm-hmm. Businesses that have been doing project management and agile and all of these things that nonprofits just took a little bit to catch up to, and I think some are still catching up. But I think it's really exciting when you see the private sector help introduce some of those practices to the nonprofit sector that I think, a long time has just been thought of like, oh, well, these are people that are just not getting paid and they just want to like help out people. I think it's a much more professionalized sector now.
So let's look forward then. So as you think about the future and you think about the lasting impact that you want to create for Austin, what would it be?
Yeah, I want to get City Council, the mayor to pass some really strong legislation to help food workers and local businesses. I think this is a sector that is so essential to our city and the character of our city. It's probably one of the only places we're not isolated anymore from other people. We go to a coffee shop, we eat at a restaurant, we're able to connect with other people and share different perspectives. And if we don't have that, I think the character of our city is lost. And so my hope is to work with government, private philanthropy, private sector, obviously all of our amazing business owners, to be able to find a solution to keep workers in our city, whether that's giving incentives to businesses so they can pay a living wage, figuring out how Texas will increase their minimum wage because of inflation and all of those things, but also supporting businesses, because just because you raise the wages, if businesses can't afford that, you're just putting then businesses out of their, you're putting people out of work and you're closing businesses. And so how can we support the businesses to do that? I think that's really the central issue. And so my hope is that I can figure that out working with a lot of amazing, smart people.
Absolutely. So what haven't I asked you that I should? What do you think the business owners and executives and nonprofit leaders of Austin should know?
Donate to your local nonprofits. You can obviously donate to Good Work Austin at www.goodworkaustin.org and get involved in our work, but really look around and see the amazing work that's being done in Austin. And with what's going on right now at the federal government and state government, they need your support now more than ever, whether that's time, treasure, or talent. It can be any of those things, but get involved. See what city council's doing. Go and advocate for your neighbors, the issues you care about. I think that we need everybody as a part of this. And of course, eat at Good Work Austin restaurants. You can go to our website and find all of our restaurants.
I mean, I feel like I can do that last one pretty easily.
Yes, that's the easiest to do and the most fun.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Stacey.